Behind Garrison's Auto Salvage. Where rust meets redemption, a homeless mechanic's calloused hands would soon repair more than just a disabled girl's dream car. Daniel Cross had no idea that fixing Maya Chen's modified Challenger would bring her billionaire mother into his broken life. But some encounters are destiny disguised as coincidence. Follow my story to the end and comment which city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale of second chances has traveled. The December rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of Garrison's Auto Salvage, each drop a reminder that winter in Detroit showed no mercy to those without proper shelter. Daniel Cross pulled the torn sleeping bag tighter around his shoulders, his breath visible in the frigid air that seeped through the gaps in his makeshift home, a rusted shipping container tucked behind towers of crushed cars and broken dreams. His hands, once steady enough to rebuild Ferrari engines blindfolded, now trembled from the cold as he heated a can of soup over a portable camping stove. 3 years. 3 years since he'd been Daniel Cross of Cross European Motors, the man Detroit's elite trusted with their Lamborghinis and Aston Martins. 3 years since Rachel's diagnosis changed everything. The socket wrench set lay beside him on an overturned crate, 23 pieces of German-engineered steel that he'd refused to sell even when hunger gnawed at his stomach like a living thing. These tools were the last bridge to who he used to be back when his hands created mechanical symphonies, instead of just trying to survive another night. Old Pete Garrison shuffled through the mud between the scrap piles, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Still awake, Daniel." The salvage yard owner's voice carried the gruff kindness of someone who understood that rock bottom had a basement. Pete had found Daniel 2 winters ago, half frozen in an abandoned Ford Pride, finally surrendering to hypothermia. "Can't sleep when it's this cold," Daniel admitted, though they both knew the cold was only part of it. The memories were worse at night when the darkness brought Rachel's voice back weak, but determined in that hospital bed, telling him to let her go, to stop destroying himself trying to save her. "Got some work tomorrow if you want it," Pete offered. "New shipment of cars coming in. Need someone who knows their way around European transmissions." "I'll be there." Pete hesitated, then pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. "Advance on tomorrow's work." Daniel's pride wrestled with necessity. Pride lost, as it had learned to do. "Thanks, Pete." After the old man left, Daniel unfolded the photograph he kept in a plastic bag to protect it from the rain. Rachel at their wedding, radiant in white. Emma at 16 laughing at something off camera, back when she still looked at him with love instead of disappointment. The edges were worn soft from handling the colors fading like everything else in his life. His phone, a cheap flip model that Pete helped him maintain for emergency work calls, showed 3 missed calls from Emma. He couldn't bring himself to listen to the voicemails. What could he say? That her father lived in a shipping container, that the man who'd once built a business worth $2 million now survived on salvage yard odd jobs and soup kitchens. The rain intensified, drumming its chaotic rhythm on the metal above. Daniel closed his eyes, trying to find sleep, when he heard it, an engine struggling, coughing like a dying animal. Not just any engine, something classic American muscle but modified. His trained ear picked up the complications immediately: electronic fuel injection grafted onto a carburetor system, custom exhaust, and something else, hydraulic systems where they shouldn't be. Curiosity pulled him from his shelter. Through the rain, he saw headlights approaching the salvage yard's chain-link fence. A 1969 Dodge Challenger deep purple with white racing stripes rolled to a stop just outside the gate. The engine gave one final shuddering gasp before dying completely. Daniel approached cautiously, keeping to the shadows out of habit. The homeless learned quickly that visibility often meant trouble, but as he got closer, he noticed something unusual. The driver's door opened with a sophisticated mechanical whir, and a wheelchair ramp extended smoothly despite the car's classic appearance. A girl emerged. No, emerged wasn't the right word. She maneuvered herself from the driver's seat into a high-tech wheelchair with practiced precision, though her movements carried the careful deliberation of someone with cerebral palsy. 16, maybe 17, with long black hair plastered to her face by the rain. Designer clothes, but worn with the carelessness of someone who had bigger concerns than fashion. She was crying. Not the dramatic sobs of teenage frustration, but the quiet tears of someone watching a dream dissolve. Her hands, trembling from more than cold, touched the Challenger's hood with the tenderness of saying goodbye to a friend. "Come on," she whispered to the car. "Please. Not tonight. Not here." She tried the ignition again. Nothing. Daniel stayed hidden, watching her pull out an iPhone latest model, of course, and start to dial. Then she stopped staring at the screen. He could see her face in the phone's glow, could read the defeat there. She canceled the call. "Can't call Mom," she said to herself. "She'll say she was right, that I'm not ready, that I'll never be ready." The rain soaked through her expensive jacket. She tried the engine once more, and this time Daniel heard what she couldn't. The timing chain slipping, the fuel pump struggling, the electronic control module failing to communicate with the mechanical systems. It was like listening to a translation error between two languages, both saying important things, but neither understanding the other. He made a decision that would change everything. "Your secondary fuel pump's dead," he called out, stepping from the shadows, "and your timing chain's about 3 teeth from catastrophic failure." The girl's wheelchair spun with surprising speed, her eyes wide with fear that quickly shifted to wariness. "Stay back," she warned, one hand moving to her phone. Daniel raised both hands, staying by the fence. "Not gonna hurt you, just letting you know what's wrong with your car." She studied him, the worn jacket, the week-old beard, the obvious signs of homelessness, and her finger hovered over her phone screen. "You're from the salvage yard." "I work here sometimes." Not a lie, technically. "And you know classic cars." "I know all cars, especially modified ones." He gestured to the Challenger. "That's not factory adaptive equipment. Someone spent serious money making that car work for you specifically." The girl's suspicion wavered slightly. "Chen Adaptive Technologies, my mom's company." Daniel's eyebrows rose. Chen Adaptive Technologies was the Tesla of accessibility modification, turning impossible dreams into drivable reality for people with disabilities. Their work costs more than most people's houses. "That explains the quality," he said. "But whoever integrated the electronic controls with the original mechanical systems missed something. Classic cars don't like being told what to do by computers. They need to be persuaded." "Can you fix it?" The question hung in the rain between them. Daniel looked at the Challenger, then at the girl in her wheelchair, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears of frustration. "Maybe, but not here. Need to get it into the yard under some cover." "The yard's closed." "I know the owner." She hesitated, clearly weighing the risks. A homeless stranger, a closed salvage yard, no one knowing where she was. Every true crime podcast she'd ever heard probably screaming warnings in her head. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel." "I'm Maya." She made a decision. "If you can get the gate open, I'll trust you. But I'm sharing my location with my mom, and I have a panic button on my chair that calls 911. "Smart girl." Daniel produced a key from his pocket, Pete's spare given for emergencies. This probably qualified. The gate swung open with a rusty shriek, and he guided Maya to the covered work area where Pete did his repairs. It wasn't much, but it kept the rain off. "I'll need to push the car in," he said. "The engine won't start without major work." "The chair has a tow hook," Maya offered, producing a cable from a compartment beneath the seat. "It can pull about 500 pounds on flat ground." Daniel stared at the wheelchair with new respect. "That's incredible engineering." "Mom doesn't do anything halfway." There was pride in her voice, but also something else, pressure maybe, or the weight of expectations. Together they maneuvered the Challenger under cover. Daniel popped the hood, and even in the dim light, he could see the problem wasn't just mechanical. It was philosophical. Someone had tried to force 21st century technology onto 20th century bones without understanding that cars, like people, have souls that resist fundamental change. "This is going to take a while, Bo," he said. "How long would 6 hours, maybe 8, need to recalibrate the entire control system, replace the fuel pump, and definitely fix that timing chain before it grenades your engine." Maya's face fell. "Mom's going to kill me. I wasn't supposed to take the car out alone. Tomorrow's my driver's test, the real one, and I wanted to practice without her hovering." "Why this car?" Daniel asked, already starting to work. "Your mom could afford to modify something newer, more reliable." Maya ran her hand along the Challenger's fender. "It was my dad's. He died when I was 3. Mom kept it in storage for years, then had it modified for me when I turned 16. She said Dad would have wanted me to have freedom. She paused. I think she also wanted to prove that her technology could make any dream possible, even one with a stick shift and a 4-barrel carburetor. Daniel found himself smiling despite everything. Your dad had good taste. 1969 was the sweet spot for challengers. What did he do? Aerospace engineer. Designed guidance systems for satellites. Her voice carried inherited pride. Mom says I get my brain from him and my stubbornness from her. As Daniel worked, Maya watched with intelligent interest, asking questions that showed she understood more about cars than most people ever would. She reminded him of Emma at that age, sharp, determined, unwilling to let limitations define her world. You know a lot about this stuff, she observed after he'd explained the fuel system problem. Used to own a shop, specialized in European cars, but I've always loved American muscle. What happened to it? The shop. Daniel's hand stilled for a moment. Life happened. Maya recognized a closed door when she heard one. She changed the subject, talking about school, her interest in engineering, the colleges she was applying to. MIT was her dream, following in her mother's footsteps. Mom graduated at 19, she said. Started Chen Technologies at 22. By 25, she had her first 100 million. That's a lot to live up to. Tell me about it. Everyone expects me to be some kind of genius like her, but I'm just good at math and science, and I love cars, which she thinks is weird. Nothing weird about loving cars. They're honest. Something's broken, you fix it. They don't lie or make excuses. They just are what they are. You sound like my therapist, Maya laughed, always finding metaphors in everything. Daniel had located the real problem, a conflict between the original ignition system and the adaptive controls. Someone had programmed the computer to override the mechanical systems entirely instead of working with them. It was like forcing someone to write with their non-dominant hand, possible but unnecessarily difficult. Maya, can you access the control module settings from your chair? Yeah, they're synced. She pulled out a tablet from another compartment. What do you need? Reduce the override threshold by 60%. Let the mechanical systems do what they were designed to do and only intervene when necessary. But the safety protocols will still work. Trust me. Cars are like people, they perform better when they're working with their nature, not against it. Maya made the adjustments, her fingers flying across the screen with the dexterity her physical condition didn't always allow. Daniel watched her concentrate, seeing the brilliant mind behind the physical challenges. This girl was going places, wheelchair or not. As he worked, Daniel became aware of another presence. Through the gaps in the salvage yard fence, he could make out a white Tesla Model S parked across the street, its driver invisible behind tinted windows. It had been there for an hour now. Maya's mother most likely watching, but not intervening. He understood that kind of parental love, the kind that watched from a distance, ready to swoop in if needed, but willing to let their child figure things out. He'd been that parent once before grief, and whiskey had made him forget how to be anything at all. Tell me about the driver's test, he said, partly to distract Maya from the wait, partly because conversation made the familiar work feel less like a reminder of what he'd lost. It's the advanced certification, Maya explained, not just the regular license. If I pass, I can drive any adapted vehicle without supervision. Mom thinks I'm not ready, that I need another year of practice. What do you think? I think I've been ready for months, but she sees the chair first, the CP. The daughter who needs protection, not the daughter who's been rebuilding engines with YouTube videos since she was 12. Daniel smiled, remembering Emma at that age, determined to prove she could change her own oil despite his protests about safety. Parents have trouble seeing their kids grow up. We want to protect you from everything, even when protection becomes its own kind of prison. You have kids. A daughter, Emma. She's 22 now. Do you see her much? Daniel's silence was answer enough. Sorry, Maya said quickly. Not my business. It's okay. We're, complicated. I wasn't a good father for a while. Maybe she's better off with the distance. Maya studied him with eyes too knowing for her age. My mom says distance is just fear wearing a disguise. that the people who matter will cross any distance if you give them a reason. Before Daniel could respond, the fuel pump arrived from the depths of Pete's parts inventory. Daniel knew exactly where Pete kept the good stuff. It was a perfect match, new enough to be reliable, but old enough to speak the Challenger's mechanical language. "This is going to be the tricky part," he told Maya. "Need to sync the new pump with your control system without triggering the safety shutoffs." "I can help with that." Maya's tablet was already showing diagnostic screens. "I've been coding since I was 8. Mom made sure I understood every line of code in my chair in the car." For the next 2 hours, they worked as a team, Daniel handling the mechanical side while Maya managed the electronic integration. She was brilliant, understanding instinctively how to bridge the gap between analog and digital, between what was and what could be. "You should be designing these systems, not just using them," Daniel told her as she solved a particularly complex synchronization problem. "That's the plan. MIT first, then maybe take over Mom's company someday. Or start my own. Chen Plus Technologies or something equally cheesy." "Don't sell yourself short. You've got the mind for it." "My body doesn't always cooperate with my mind." "Bodies are just hardware," Daniel said, tightening the last fuel line connection. "Yours needs different programming than most, but the processor," he tapped his temple, "that's what matters." Maya grinned. "You should meet my mom. You two speak the same language." The rain had shifted to a light drizzle by the time Daniel finished the timing chain repair. The Challenger's engine bay looked like a successful negotiation between past and future original components working in harmony with adaptive technology. "Moment of truth," he announced, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen better decades. Maya transferred back to the driver's seat with practiced efficiency, her movements confident despite the complexity of the action. The Challenger's interior had been beautifully modified hand controls that looked like natural extensions of the steering wheel, electronic displays that provided feedback. Her body couldn't always give her, but all of it integrated so seamlessly that the car's classic aesthetic remained intact. She turned the key. The engine roared to life, immediately settling into a purr that would make any muscle car enthusiast weep with joy. Maya's face lit up like Christmas morning. "You did it, Daniel. You actually did it." "We did it," he corrected. "Couldn't have synced those systems without you." She revved the engine gently, listening to its response. Perfect. Better than perfect. The car sounded like it had finally found its voice after being forced to whisper. "What do I owe you?" Maya asked, reaching for her purse. "Nothing. Daniel, you just spent 6 hours, and I enjoyed every minute. Been a while since I worked on something this interesting. Besides, you helped. Call it even." Maya looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. Instead, she pulled out a business card, her own, it turned out. Maya Chen, future engineer, with her email and phone number. "In case you ever need anything," she said. "I mean it, anything. Pass your test tomorrow. That's payment enough." As Maya backed the Challenger out of the work area, Daniel noticed the Tesla across the street hadn't moved. The driver's window was cracked now, and he could just make out a silhouette watching them. Maya noticed too. "That's Mom," she said with a mix of embarrassment and affection. "She probably tracked my phone. She does that." "She loves you." "Yeah." Maya's voice softened. "She does. Too much sometimes, but yeah." She drove to the gate, then stopped, looking back at Daniel standing in the salvage yard, rain-soaked and obviously homeless, but carrying himself with the dignity of someone who'd just done good work. "Daniel, thank you. Not just for the car, for treating me like a person. Not a disability with a person attached." "You're welcome, Maya. Now go home. Your mom's probably worried sick." The Challenger pulled away its engine, singing the song Daniel had helped it remember. The Tesla followed a moment later, but not before the driver's window lowered fully. A woman looked out, mid-40s, Asian features, wearing a designer suit, even at midnight. She looked directly at Daniel, nodded once, acknowledgement, gratitude, and something else he couldn't quite read. Then drove away. Daniel stood in the rain for a long moment, feeling something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Purpose. For 6 hours, he'd been himself again, not the homeless drunk hiding in a salvage yard, but Daniel Cross, master mechanic problem solver. helper of dreams. He returned to his shipping container, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept replaying the night Maya's determination, the Challenger's resurrection, the mother watching from the shadows. On impulse, he pulled out his phone and scrolled to Emma's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. Not yet, but maybe soon. The next morning arrived gray and bitter frost, coating everything in the salvage yard like nature's tetanus. Daniel woke to Pete banging on the container. You want to explain why there's oil all over my work area and a note from some teenage girl thanking me for letting her use the shop? Daniel emerged, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Sorry, Pete. Emergency repair. Girl broke down in the rain. And you just happened to help. Pete's gruff exterior cracked slightly. The note had a $100 bill with it, said it was for shop rental, also said you refused payment for 6 hours of work. She's a kid, Pete. A kid with $100 to spare for shop rental. Pete studied Daniel with eyes that had seen too much of life to be fooled easily. You know you could have kept that money, could have said the shop fee was $500, pocketed the difference. That's not who I am. No, Pete agreed. That's not who you are, which is why this is for you. He handed Daniel an envelope. Inside was a business card on paper so thick it felt like money. Victoria Chen, CEO, Chen Adaptive Technologies. On the back handwritten Mr. Cross. Your expertise and kindness to my daughter have not gone unnoticed. Please call at your earliest convenience. I have a proposition. Fancy lady dropped it off this morning, Pete said. Drove a Tesla that costs more than my whole yard, said she'd wait for your call. Daniel stared at the card. She knew his name. His real name, not just Daniel. She also left this. Pete produced a garment bag. Said you'd need it for the meeting. Inside was a suit. Not fancy, but clean, professional, exactly Daniel's size. How did she know his size? How did she know anything, Pete? Don't overthink it. Daniel, sometimes life throws you a rope. You can examine every fiber of it, or you can grab on and climb. Daniel fingered the business card quality cardstock between his calloused fingers. Victoria Chen had watched him work all night, had seen him at his lowest point, homeless, broken a shadow of his former self. Yet she'd seen something worth this card, this suit, this chance. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cross. This is Victoria Chen. I believe we have something to discuss regarding your remarkable work on my daughter's vehicle last night. Her voice was cultured, precise, carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed but tinged with something else, curiosity maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. Ms. Chen, It's Dr. Chen technically, but Victoria is fine. Are you available this afternoon? I'd like to discuss an opportunity that might interest you. Daniel looked around the salvage yard at his shipping container home, at the life he'd been surviving rather than living. I can be available. Excellent. 2 o'clock Chen Technologies headquarters. The address is on the card. Oh, and Mr. Cross, Maya passed her driving test this morning. She said to tell you the car ran perfectly. She also said you'd understand what she meant by, the processor works fine, just needed the right programming. The line went dead, leaving Daniel holding a phone that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. In his other hand, the suit and its bag armor for a battle he wasn't sure he was ready to fight. But Maya's words echoed. The processor works fine, just needed the right programming. Maybe after 3 years of debugging his life in a salvage yard, it was time to run a different program. The Chen Technologies building pierced the Detroit skyline like a glass and steel declaration of intent. 42 floors of innovation, the top 10 reserved for Victoria Chen's personal domain. Daniel stood at the base neck, craned back, wearing Pete's borrowed suit that fit surprisingly well despite being a decade out of style. The security guard at the reception desk looked him over once, typed something into his computer, and handed over a visitor's badge without question. Elevator Bank 3, Mr. Cross. Express to the 40th floor. Dr. Chen is expecting you. The elevator rose smoothly, silently, carrying Daniel away from the world of salvage yards and shipping containers toward something he couldn't quite name yet. His reflection in the polished doors showed a man trying to remember who he used to be, clean-shaven for the first time in months. Courtesy of Pete's shop bathroom hair trimmed with scissors borrowed from the old man's desk drawer. The 40th floor opened into a reception area that breathed money without shouting it. Original artwork on the walls, furniture that looked comfortable and expensive. Views of Detroit that made the city look like it had never heard of bankruptcy or abandonment. Mr. Cross, a young assistant appeared, tablet in hand. Dr. Chen is in the testing facility. She asked me to bring you straight through. They walked through corridors lined with glass walls behind which engineers worked on projects that looked like science fiction. Robotic limbs that moved with human grace. Wheelchairs that could climb stairs. Vehicle modifications that turned disability into mere difference. The testing facility occupied half the floor, a vast space filled with adapted vehicles in various stages of modification. And there in the center was Maya's Challenger hood, open with Victoria Chen herself examining the engine. She looked up as Daniel approached, and he got his first clear look at the woman who'd watched from the shadows. Mid-40s, elegant in a way that had nothing to do with the designer suit and everything to do with how she carried herself. Her eyes held intelligence that could dissect you in seconds and decide if you were worth the effort. Mr. Cross, thank you for coming. She straightened, wiping her hands on a cloth that probably cost more than Daniel's weekly food budget. I've been examining your work from last night. Interesting approach to the integration problem. It was Maya who handled the programming side. But it was you who diagnosed the philosophical issue, forcing cooperation rather than demanding submission. She circled the car, running her hand along modifications Daniel had adjusted. My engineer spent 6 months on this integration. You fixed it in 6 hours. I just listened to what the car was trying to say. Victoria smiled slightly. And that Mr. Cross is why you're here. My company can hire 100 engineers who understand technology. What I need is someone who understands the soul of these machines. She led him to a conference room with walls of glass overlooking the testing floor. Coffee water. Coffee would be good. She poured 2 cups from a machine that looked like it belonged in a spacecraft, handed him one. The coffee was perfect, strong, complex, nothing like the instant crystals he'd been surviving on. I know who you are, Victoria said without preamble. Daniel Cross, former owner of Cross European Motors, lost everything trying to save your wife from cancer, been living behind Garrison Salvage for the past 18 months. Daniel's hand tightened on the coffee cup. I also know, she continued, that you were once the best European car specialist in the Midwest, that you pioneered adaptive modifications before it was profitable, that your 2009 Ferrari 458 conversion for James Hartford is still considered the gold standard for high-performance accessibility modification. That was a long time ago. 3 years. Not that long in the grand scheme. Victoria pulled up a holographic display from the conference table. Daniel tried not to look surprised by the technology. This is our classic division. We modify modern vehicles constantly, but there's a growing market for vintage and classic cars. People who've loved these cars their whole lives, who now need adaptive technology but don't want to give up their dreams. Images floated in the air. Corvettes, Mustangs, classic Mercedes, vintage Porsches, all waiting for the marriage of old soul and new capability. The problem, Victoria continued, is that modern engineers don't understand these cars. They try to force new technology onto old bones without respecting what made these cars special. They kill the soul to save the body. And you think I can do better. I know you can. I watched you work last night. More importantly, Maya watched you work. My daughter doesn't trust easily, Mr. Cross. Her cerebral palsy has taught her that most people see the chair before they see her. But you saw her, the person, the engineer. Daniel set down his coffee carefully. Dr. Chen, I appreciate the offer, but you should know I'm not the man I used to be. I've lost things. Years. There's damage that doesn't just buff out. I'm not looking for the man you used to be. I'm interested in the man you are now. The one who spent 6 hours in the rain fixing a stranger's car for free. The one who taught my daughter more about integration philosophy in one night than her tutors have managed in a year. She pulled up another display. A 1967 Camaro SS Midnight Blue, beautiful and broken. This belongs to Robert Morrison, a Gulf War veteran who lost both legs to an IED. He's had this car since high school, bought it with paper route money in 1979. Every modification firm we've consulted says it's impossible to adapt without destroying its classic nature. They want to gut it, Fill it with computers, turn it into a rolling iPad with a Camaro shell. Daniel stood drawn to the holographic image. His fingers moved through the projection, tracing the car's lines, already seeing possibilities. The frame's strong enough for modification, he murmured. You'd need to respect the original powertrain work with the mechanical systems instead of replacing them. Custom hand controls that complement the interior design, not dominate it. The pedal assembly could be. He stopped, realizing he was lecturing a billionaire CEO about car modification. But Victoria was smiling. Go on. The pedal assembly could be converted to a floor-mounted hand control system disguised as a custom center console. Maintain the aesthetic while providing full functionality. Could you do it? With the right resources, yes. Then consider this director of classic automotive adaptation. Full benefits? 6-figure salary. Housing assistance to help you transition. You'd have a team of engineers, access to our full technical resources, and the freedom to develop a program that respects both the vehicles and the people who love them. Daniel's legs felt weak. He sat back down heavily. Dr. Chen, I'm homeless. I've been living in a shipping container. I haven't had a drink in 6 months, but before that you were grieving. I understand grief, Mr. Cross. Maya's father died when she was 3. Car accident. Ironic considering what I do now. She looked out at the testing floor where Maya's challenger sat. I built this company partly to honor him, partly to ensure Maya would never face limitations she couldn't overcome. But mostly I built it because I needed to do something with the anger, the pain, the overwhelming sense of unfairness. She turned back to him. You turned your grief inward. I turned mine into this. Neither is right or wrong, just different expressions of the same loss. The question is, what do you want to do now? Before Daniel could answer, Maya wheeled in, her face glowing with excitement. Mom, Daniel, did you tell him about the program? She stopped, seeing their serious expressions. Oh, you're doing the heavy conversation thing. Maya, Victoria began. No, wait. Daniel needs to know something. Maya wheeled closer to him. Last night when you were fixing my car, you said bodies are just hardware. But you were wrong. They're not just hardware. They're the interface between who we are and what we can do. Your interface got damaged. So did mine. But that doesn't mean we stop being who we are. She pulled out her tablet, showing Daniel a video. It was him last night working on the Challenger. But what struck him wasn't the work, it was his face. Focused, engaged, alive in a way he'd forgotten he could be. That's who you are, Maya said simply. That's who Mom wants to hire, not the before version or the after version. The right now version who can see past the broken parts to what's still possible. Daniel looked between mother and daughter, these 2 women who'd built an empire on refusing to accept limitations. I'd need time, he said carefully, to get stable, to find a place. Corporate apartments available immediately, Victoria interrupted. 2 bedrooms walking distance from here, part of the package. And the team would need to understand that you've been through hell and have the perspective to understand our clients' struggles. That's a feature, not a bug. My daughter, Emma, she doesn't know about. Then maybe it's time to tell her that her father's climbing back up. Daniel thought about Pete's words that morning about grabbing the rope. Here it was braided from second chances and unexpected kindness offered by people who saw him clearly and wanted him anyway. When would I start? Victoria and Maya exchanged glances. Monday, Victoria suggested. Give you the weekend to transition, get settled. There's one condition, Daniel said. Pete Garrison, the salvage yard owner. He's been keeping me alive for 18 months. I want him consulted on any classic parts sourcing, paid fairly. Done, Victoria extended her hand. Welcome to Chen Technologies, Mr. Cross. As they shook hands, Daniel felt something shift inside him, like an engine finally firing after too many failed attempts. There's a team meeting in 20 minutes, Victoria said. Would you like to sit in and see what you're getting into? Daniel nodded, then remembered. I should probably call Emma first. Tell her something. Maya pulled out her phone. What's her number? I'll text her that her dad just got hired as Director of Classic Automotive Adaptation at Chen Technologies. Let her Google us and freak out a little. Maya, Victoria warned. What, it's better than, hi, honey. Surprise, I've been homeless, but now I'm not. Despite everything, Daniel laughed, really laughed for the first time in 3 years. Give me the phone, he said. I'll call her myself. He stepped onto the balcony overlooking the testing floor. Emma's number dialed, but not yet calling. Below Maya's challenger sat like proof that broken things could be made whole without losing their essential nature. He pressed call. Dad? Emma's voice cautious but not cold. I've been trying to reach you. I know, I'm sorry. Emma, I have something to tell you. A lot of things, actually. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm getting better. Actually, I just got a job. A real job. Silence then. Dad, that's amazing. Where? Chen Technologies, in Detroit. I'm going to be running their classic automotive adaptation program. Chen Technologies. The Chen Technologies, Dad, they're legendary. How did you... It's a long story. Emma, there are things I need to tell you about the last 3 years. Things I should have said earlier, but couldn't. Dad, whatever it is, we can work through it. I've been worried sick. Your phone was always off. The house was sold. No one knew where you were. I know. I'm sorry. I wasn't ready to be found, but I think I'm ready now. Through the glass, he could see Victoria and Maya in the conference room. Maya gesticulating wildly about something while her mother smiled with fond exasperation. A family rebuilt after loss, functioning despite its missing pieces. Can I come see you? Emma asked. I can drive up this weekend. I'd like that. I'll have an apartment by then. A real address. Dad. Her voice was thick with emotion. I'm proud of you. Whatever you've been through, wherever you've been, I'm proud of you for calling. After they hung up, Daniel stood on the balcony for a moment longer. The testing floor below was busy with technicians and engineers, all working on giving people their independence back. Soon he'd be part of this. Soon he'd have something to offer beyond survival. He returned to the conference room where Victoria was introducing him to the team via video conference. Everyone, this is Daniel Cross. He'll be joining us Monday to head up the classic division. Faces on screens nodded welcomes. Someone asked about his experience with pre-1970 vehicles. Someone else wanted to know his thoughts on electric conversion versus traditional powertrains. Technical questions he could answer, ground he could stand on. But it was Maya who asked the question that mattered. Daniel, what's your vision? If you could build this program any way you wanted, what would it look like? He thought about Pete's salvage yard, about all the classic cars rusting away because their owners could no longer drive them. About the veterans, the disabled, the elderly, who'd had to give up pieces of their identity along with their keys. I want to build a program that understands that every car has a story and every driver has a dream. We're not just adapting machines, we're preserving relationships. When someone brings us their 1965 Mustang that they bought with their first paycheck or their father's Corvette that they inherited but can't drive anymore, we're handling their history. The technology should serve that history, not erase it. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Victoria spoke. That's exactly what we need to hear. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of technical discussions and planning. Daniel contributed where he could, but mostly he absorbed relearning what it felt like to be part of something larger than survival. As the meeting ended, Victoria handed him a company tablet and phone. Your corporate devices. Ite will set them up Monday, but they're functional now. The apartment key is in my assistant's desk. She'll give you the address and a corporate credit card for immediate expenses, furniture, clothes, whatever you need. This is too much. This is an investment. In you, in the program, in the people we'll serve. She paused at the door. Daniel, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this out of charity. I watched you work last night. I saw how you taught Maya how you treated her. I'm hiring you because you're exactly what this program needs. The rest, the apartment, the support that's just removing obstacles so you can do what you do best. After she left, Maya lingered. She means it, you know. Mom doesn't do anything halfway. She believes in you. Why, she doesn't know me. She knows enough. She knows you could have taken advantage last night, could have charged me thousands and I would have paid it. Could have done a quick patch job instead of a real repair. Could have treated me like a helpless kid instead of teaching me. Maya headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Daniel. That thing you said about cars being honest? People can be too if you let them. Mom's the most honest person I know. If she says you're the right person for this job, then you are. That evening, Daniel stood in his new apartment, a 2-bedroom space on the 15th floor of a building he'd driven past 1,000 times, but never imagined entering. It was furnished simply corporate efficiency, but clean, warm, safe. The windows looked out over the city where he'd built and lost everything. He'd stopped by the salvage yard to pack his few possessions. The socket wrench set his photographs, the handful of clothes worth keeping. Pete had helped him carry them to the corporate car Victoria had arranged. Knew you were too good for that shipping container, Pete had said gruffly. Don't forget us small folks when you're running your fancy program. Never. You saved my life, Pete. No, I just gave you space to save it yourself. There's a difference. Now in the quiet of his new space, Daniel set up the photographs on a shelf. Rachel on their wedding day. Emma at graduation. The grand opening of Cross European Motors. Instead of pain, he felt something else, gratitude for what had been hope for what might be. His new phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Mom says the Camaro arrives Monday. Can't wait to see what you do with it. P.S. Emma added me on Instagram. She seems cool. We're already planning to gang up on you. Daniel smiled, imagining Emma and Maya conspiring. His daughter and this brilliant girl who'd crashed into his life and somehow lifted him out of the wreckage. Another text, this one from Victoria. Board approved the Classic Division budget. You'll have full resources and a team of 5 to start. Also, Maya insists on being your unofficial consultant. Try to stop her. I dare you. He walked to the window looking out at Detroit's lights. 3 days ago, he'd been invisible, one of the city's forgotten people. Now he had a purpose, a team, a future that seemed impossible, but was apparently real. The phone rang. Emma. Dad, I just looked up Chen Technologies. Do you know what you've gotten into? Their revolutionary Maya Chen is already Instagram famous for her adaptive driving videos. And Victoria Chen is like the Elon Musk of accessibility technology. It's a little overwhelming, he admitted. Overwhelming, Dad. This is amazing. I'm driving up tomorrow. I want to hear everything, and I mean everything. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his new living room surrounded by the strange comfort of possibility. Tomorrow, Emma would come and he'd have to explain the last 3 years. Monday, he'd start a job that felt like redemption dressed in corporate clothing. But tonight, he just sat with the quiet recognition that sometimes life breaks you, precisely where you need to be broken, so something better can grow in the cracks. His phone buzzed once more. A photo from Maya, her Challenger in her driveway gleaming under the streetlights. The caption read, "Thanks to you, I passed my test in style. Can't wait to see what dreams you'll fix next." Daniel saved the photo, then pulled out the tablet Victoria had given him. Time to start researching the Camaro to begin sketching possibilities for Robert Morrison's dream. It felt good to have work again, real work that mattered. Outside Detroit sprawled in all its broken glory, a city that knew something about rising from ashes. Daniel Cross was ready to rise with it. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp Detroit dawn that promised new beginnings. Daniel stood in the Chen Technologies testing facility, surrounded by his new team, watching a flatbed truck carefully lower Robert Morrison's 1967 Camaro SS onto the workshop floor. The car was a contradiction, pristine midnight blue paint, hiding mechanical neglect, chrome bumpers reflecting light, while the engine bay harbored decades of deferred maintenance. It was perfect and broken simultaneously like so many things in Daniel's life. Jesus, muttered Alex Huang, his lead engineer, a 28-year-old MIT graduate who'd joined Chen Technologies straight from school. Morrison wasn't kidding. This thing hasn't run in 5 years. Longer, said Carla Rodriguez, the team's electronics specialist. Look at the dust patterns. I'd say closer to 8. Daniel circled the Camaro slowly, his hand trailing along its flanks. Through the driver's window, he could see the worn leather seats, the original Hirsch shifter, a pair of fuzzy dice that had probably hung there since the 70s. Marcus, pull up Morrison's file. he said to Marcus Washington, his project coordinator and the only team member older than Daniel. The holographic display materialized, showing a photograph of Robert Morrison, mid-50s, weathered face, wheelchair-bound, wearing his Gulf War veteran cap with quiet pride. Lost both legs to an IED outside Baghdad, 2004, Marcus read. Purple Heart Bronze Star. Worked construction until 5 years ago, when complications from his injuries made it impossible. The Camaro was his high school car, bought it in 1979 with money he saved from 3 jobs. He stopped driving it when he couldn't work the clutch anymore, Daniel said quietly. Easier to let it sit than admit he couldn't drive his dream. The workshop door opened and Victoria entered with Maya and an unexpected guest, Emma. Daniel's daughter looked good. Professional blazer, confident posture, the kind of young woman who was going places. She'd driven up Saturday as promised, and they'd spent the weekend carefully rebuilding their relationship brick by careful brick. She'd taken the news of his homelessness better than he'd expected, though he'd seen her crying in her car afterward, thinking he couldn't see. Thought we'd observe the master at work, Victoria said. Emma was curious about our process. Dad's always been good at resurrection, Emma said, her voice carrying layers of meaning. Cars, anyway. Maya wheeled over to the Camaro, running her hand along its hood. It's beautiful, like mine, but different, more masculine. Different era, Daniel explained. This was built when cars were statements of power. Your Challenger was about precision. This is about presence. Can it really be adapted without losing that presence? Emma asked. Daniel looked at his team. That's what we're here to figure out. Alex, what's your assessment? The young engineer pulled up his tablet, projecting his preliminary analysis. Structurally sound, but we're looking at a complete mechanical overhaul. The clutch system is obviously the main challenge. Morrison has minimal leg function but strong upper body. Traditional hand controls won't work with this transmission. Why not? Maya asked. It's a Muncie M21 4-speed, Daniel explained. Close ratio meant for racing. You can't just replace it with an automatic without killing the car's soul. So what do we do? Daniel was already moving his hands, exploring the Camaro's interior. We innovate. Carla, can you design an electronic clutch system that maintains the manual transmission but operates via paddle, like Formula One cars? Exactly, but hidden integrated into the original steering wheel design. Carla's eyes lit up. I can do that. Might even improve performance. Marcus, reach out to Morrison. I want to know every memory he has with this car. First date, best race, worst breakdown. Everything. You want to interview him about his car? Alex seemed puzzled. I want to understand what we're really fixing. It's not just a machine. Victoria watched approvingly as Daniel orchestrated his team, each member falling into rhythm. This was what she'd hired him for, not just technical expertise, but the ability to see the human story within the mechanical challenge. There's something else, Victoria said, pulling Daniel aside. We've had an inquiry from someone claiming to be your former business partner, Marcus Reed. Daniel's blood chilled. Marcus Reed, the man who'd convinced him to take out massive loans for expansion just before the economy crashed, then disappeared with $200,000 in consulting fees, leaving Daniel to face bankruptcy alone. What does he want? He's representing Apex Motors. They're launching a competing adaptive division. He suggested we might want to collaborate. He means he wants to steal our techniques. That was my assessment. I told him we weren't interested, but he seemed persistent. Maya had wheeled closer, eavesdropping without shame. Apex Motors. They're hacks. Their idea of adaptation is bolting an iPad to the dashboard and calling it revolutionary. Maya, Victoria warned. What? It's true. I've seen their work at car shows. No soul, no integration, just technology slapped onto classics like bumper stickers. Daniel's phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the area code was familiar. Against his better judgment, he answered. Danny, boy. Marcus Reed's voice hadn't changed, still carrying that false warmth that had once fooled Daniel into trusting him. Heard you landed on your feet. Chen Technology's impressive. What do you want, Marcus? Straight to business, no catching up. It's been, what, 3 years? Last I heard you were having some difficulties. Daniel stepped away from the others, though he could feel Emma watching him with concern. I said, "What do you want?" "Just calling to congratulate you, and to let you know I'll be watching your work with interest. Apex is very interested in the classic market. In fact, we're bidding on the same Veterans Program contract you're after." "We're not after any contract." "Oh, Victoria hasn't told you the VA wants to fund adaptive vehicles for wounded veterans. $100 million program. Chen Technologies and Apex are the final two bidders. May the best company win." The line went dead. Daniel returned to find Victoria deep in discussion with Alex about structural modifications. She looked up, read his expression. "He told you about the VA contract." "You might have mentioned it. I was going to once we had proof of concept with Morrison's Camaro. The presentation is in 3 weeks. If we can show them a successful adaptation that maintains the vehicle's essential character, the contract is ours. And if Marcus gets it, then Apex floods the market with cheap, soulless conversions that will set back adaptive technology by a decade." Daniel looked at the Camaro, then at his team, all watching him expectantly. Emma had moved closer to Maya, the two of them already forming an alliance he didn't quite understand yet. "Then we better make this Camaro sing." The next week blurred into 18-hour days. Daniel's apartment became a second office, covered in sketches and calculations. The team worked with the desperation of people who knew they were building something that mattered. Emma extended her stay ostensibly to spend time with her father, but really to help Maya with the programming side of the adaptation. The two had become inseparable, Emma's environmental engineering expertise combining with Maya's coding genius to create solutions that were both sustainable and revolutionary. "You know," Emma said one evening as they worked late in the lab, "this is the happiest I've seen you since Mom died." Daniel looked up from the transmission he was rebuilding. "It feels good to build again instead of just survive." "It's more than that. You're mentoring again. Teaching. The way you work with Alex and Carla, it's like watching you with your old crew, but better. More patient. Losing everything teaches patience. Or impatience with the things that don't matter." Emma paused. "Have you talked to anyone about the last 3 years?" "You mean therapy?" "I mean anyone. The homelessness, Dad. That's not something you just walk away from unchanged." Daniel set down his tools. "Pete? I talk to Pete. Still do. He understands things that people with normal lives don't." "Like what?" "Like how dignity isn't about what you own. It's about what you're willing to do when you have nothing left to lose." Before Emma could respond, Maya burst in, tablet in hand. "We have a problem. Apex just posted a video of their veteran adaptation. It's Morrison's friend Timothy Walsh. They did his GTO in 3 days." She played the video. The adaptation was exactly what Daniel expected, functional but heartless. The classic GTO's interior had been gutted, replaced with modern electronics that looked like they'd been transplanted from a Tesla. It worked, but the car's soul was gone. "The comments are brutal," Maya continued. "People are calling it technological vandalism." "Good," said Victoria, entering with coffee for everyone. "Let them show the wrong way to do this. We'll show the right way." "We need more time," Alex protested. "The clutch integration alone needs another week of testing." "We have 4 days," Victoria said firmly. "The VA committee visits Friday." Daniel stood covered in grease and exhaustion, but suddenly energized. "Then we work around the clock. Alex forgets sleep. Carla, call in whatever favors you need. Marcus, get Morrison here tomorrow. He needs to be part of this." "What are you going to do?" Emma asked. "What I should have done from the start. I'm going to talk to the car." They thought he was joking until they saw him sit in the Camaro's driver's seat at 2 in the morning. Hands on the steering wheel, eyes closed, feeling every vibration as Alex ran diagnostics. He was learning the car's language, understanding its rhythms, finding where the adaptation could enhance rather than replace. At 3 in the morning, Pete Garrison arrived with a box of original Camaro parts he'd been hoarding for 40 years. "Heard you needed some authenticity," he said gruffly. "Can't have those Apex assholes showing us up." By Thursday afternoon, they had something extraordinary. The Camaro looked completely stock, but hidden within its classic lines was technology that would have seemed like magic in 1967. The paddle shift clutch was invisible, integrated into the original steering wheel. The hand controls were disguised as a period-correct center console. Even the digital displays were hidden behind analog faces that flipped at the touch of a button. Robert Morrison arrived Thursday evening, wheeled in by his wife Patricia. He stopped dead when he saw the car. "It looks exactly the same." "That was the point," Daniel said. "Want to drive it?" Morrison's hands shook as he transferred into the driver's seat. The modifications were so intuitive that he barely needed instruction. The engine roared to life, that distinctive Camaro growl unchanged. The clutch. Right paddle. The transmission's still manual, still the same Muncie you installed in '83. We just gave you a different way to control it. Morrison's eyes filled with tears as he shifted through the gears, each movement smooth and precise. "It feels like my car. It is my car." "That's what we do here," Victoria said quietly. "We don't replace dreams. We adapt them." Friday morning arrived gray and threatening rain. The VA committee consisted of 3 people: General Patricia Hayes, Dr. Michael Thompson from Walter Reed, and to Daniel's surprise, James Hartford, the man whose Ferrari he'd adapted years ago. "Mr. Cross," Hartford said warmly, "when I heard you were involved, I insisted on being part of the evaluation." Marcus Reed stood with the Apex team, his smile sharp as a blade. "Danny, looking well. Amazing what a shower and a suit can do." Daniel ignored him, focusing on the presentation. They started with the technical specifications, Alex and Carla explaining the innovations they'd developed. But it was Morrison who sold it. "This isn't just about driving," he said from behind the wheel of his restored Dream. "It's about being whole again. Apex gave Tim a car that works. Chen Technologies gave me my car back." General Hayes herself, a veteran, understood immediately. "Show me the cost differential." Victoria pulled up the numbers. "We're 18% more expensive than Apex initially, but our modifications last longer, require less maintenance, and maintain resale value. Total cost of ownership is actually lower. And the production timeline, 2 weeks per vehicle for full custom work, but we're also developing modular systems that can be installed in days." Marcus Reed stepped forward. "With all due respect, Chen Technologies has an untested team led by someone who was homeless 6 weeks ago. Is that really who we want handling a $100 million program?" The room went silent. Daniel started to respond, but Morrison beat him to it. "You want to talk about homelessness? I was homeless for 3 months after I got back from Iraq. You know what saved me? People who saw my potential instead of my problems. Cross did more for me in a week than you did for Tim in 3 days. His team understood that this isn't about disability. It's about capability." Hartford spoke up. "I've known Daniel Cross for 15 years. Yes, he's had struggles. But the man who adapted my Ferrari when no one else could, who's now leading this program, that's exactly who should be handling this. He understands what it means to rebuild from nothing." General Hayes looked at the Camaro, then at Morrison behind the wheel, his face glowing with the joy of recovered independence. "Dr. Thompson, your medical assessment. The Chen Technologies modifications are superior from an ergonomic standpoint. They require less effort, cause less strain, and adapt to the user's capabilities, rather than forcing the user to adapt to them." Hayes stood. "We'll make our decision Monday. Both teams thank you for your presentations." As the committee left, Marcus Reed approached Daniel. "Nice show, Danny, but this isn't over. You think you've won because you've got the sob story the homeless mechanic makes good. I know things about you, things that would make Chen reconsider her charity case." "Like what?" "Like the fact that you were drunk the night Rachel died, that you weren't there because you were passed out in your office after closing the biggest deal of your career, that Emma had to identify her mother's body alone because you were too wasted to drive to the hospital." Daniel felt the words like physical blows. It was true, all of it. "That's enough." Victoria's voice cut through the air like ice. "Mr. Reed, you're on private property. Leave, now." Security appeared escorting Marcus out, but his parting smile promised this wasn't over. Daniel stood frozen, waiting for Victoria to fire him, for Emma to storm out, for everything to crumble again. Instead, Emma took his hand. "I know, Dad. I've always known. And I forgave you a long time ago. How can you—" Because Mom forgave you. Her last words to me were, "Take care of your father. He's going to blame himself, but it wasn't his fault. The cancer was going to win regardless. Don't let him destroy himself with guilt." Maya wheeled over. "Also, Marcus Reed is a dick who just proved he'll use any weapon to win, which means we're a threat, which means our work is better." Victoria nodded. "Monday's decision will be based on merit, not mudslinging. Morrison's testimony alone guaranteed that." But Daniel barely heard them. Emma's forgiveness. Rachel's forgiveness washed over him like absolution he'd never thought he'd receive. That weekend they waited. Daniel and Emma spent Saturday visiting Rachel's grave, laying flowers, and finally truly saying goodbye. Maya joined them Sunday for dinner, the three of them forming an unlikely family unit that somehow worked. Monday morning, Victoria's phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. She listened, her expression neutral, then hung up. "We got it. Full contract." They specifically cited Morrison's demonstration and Daniel's understanding of the human element. The workshop erupted in celebration. Alex and Carla high-fived. Marcus Washington actually smiled. Pete, who'd been waiting outside, came in with a bottle of champagne he'd been saving since 1987. "To second chances," he toasted. "To third chances," Daniel corrected, looking at Emma and Maya. "And fourth. And as many as it takes." The VA contract changed everything. Within 2 weeks, Chen Technologies had a waiting list of veterans seeking adaptive modifications, each story more compelling than the last. Daniel's team expanded to 12 people, the workshop doubled in size, and the pressure mounted exponentially. But it was the email that arrived on a Tuesday morning that stopped Daniel cold. "Mr. Cross, I represent several investors interested in your situation at Chen Technologies. Your rapid rise from homelessness to director is inspiring, but we have concerns about the stability of your position. Marcus Reed has shared troubling information about your past. We'd like to discuss protecting your interests. Catherine Walsh, Investment Partners." Victoria read it over his shoulder, her expression darkening. "They're trying to poach you." "Or destroy me." Catherine Walsh is Marcus's ex-wife. They're still business partners. Maya wheeled in with her tablet, already 3 steps ahead. "I did some digging. Apex Motors is hemorrhaging money. They lost 2 major contracts after their GTO disaster went viral. Marcus needs to either steal our techniques or destroy our credibility." "So he's using his ex-wife to seem legitimate," Emma added, entering with coffee for everyone. She'd extended her stay indefinitely, taking a remote position with her California firm to remain close to her father. The workshop phone rang. Alex answered, his face paling. "Mr. Cross, it's Senator Williams. His daughter's wedding is this weekend, and he wants to confirm the Mustang will be ready." Daniel had completely forgotten. Senator Williams's daughter Jennifer, paralyzed in a riding accident, was getting married Saturday. They'd promised her father's 1965 Mustang would be adapted in time for her to drive herself to the reception. "Tell him it'll be ready, Daniel said, though they hadn't even started the modification. After Alex hung up, the team stared at him. "We have 4 days, Carla said. "That's impossible." "No," Daniel replied, already moving. "Impossible is what we do. Alex, pull every technical spec we have. Emma, can you handle the programming? Maya, I need you on integration. Everyone else clear your schedules." "What about Marcus?" Victoria asked. "Marcus can wait. Jennifer Williams can't." The Mustang arrived that afternoon, candy apple red, pristine condition, with a note from the senator. "This was my first car. Now, it needs to be hers." Daniel ran his hands over the classic lines, already seeing the modifications in his mind. But as he opened the hood, his phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel Cross. The voice was female, professional, cold. "Yes. This is Amanda Chen from the Detroit News. I'm working on a story about formerly homeless individuals in executive positions. Marcus Reed suggested you might have comments about your time living behind Garrison Salvage." Daniel's blood chilled. No comment. "Are you aware that Chen Technologies hasn't run a proper background check? That your history of alcoholism and business failure hasn't been disclosed to shareholders?" I said no comment. "What about the night your wife died? Would you like to comment on—" Daniel hung up his hands, shaking. Victoria appeared beside him. "They're escalating." "Let them," she said firmly. We have lawyers. You have work to do. But the calls kept coming. Reporters, investors, concerned shareholders. Marcus had launched a full campaign, and it was working. By Wednesday morning, Chen Technologies' stock had dropped 3 points. Maybe I should resign, Daniel said, standing in Victoria's office as she fielded her 20th call of the morning. Absolutely not. She ended her call and faced him. You know what I did when Maya was diagnosed with cerebral palsy? I tried to hide it, thought it would hurt my company's image. Then I realized hiding suggests shame. We have nothing to be ashamed of. I was drunk when Rachel died. That's shameful. You were human, flawed, broken by watching someone you loved die slowly. Victoria moved closer. You think I haven't made mistakes? You think I haven't failed? The difference is my failures weren't public, until now. She pulled up a press release on her screen. Chen Technologies CEO reveals company origin built from tragedy. The release detailed Victoria's husband's death, her struggle as a single mother with a disabled child, the night she'd spent crying in her office, wondering if she could continue. You're not doing this for me, Daniel protested. I'm doing it for us. For everyone who's ever been told their struggles disqualify them from success. We're calling a press conference Friday, Yumi, Maya, and Morrison. We're going to show them what redemption looks like. Thursday night, with the press conference looming and the Mustang still in pieces, everything came together. The team worked in perfect synchronization, each member contributing their expertise. Emma and Maya had created something revolutionary, an AI-assisted driving system that learned from the driver adapting to their specific needs in real time. It's not just modification, Maya explained to Jennifer Williams, who'd come to see the progress. It's evolution. The car learns how you drive and adjusts to help you drive better. Jennifer, 24 and radiant despite her wheelchair, watched with tears in her eyes as her father's Mustang transformed. Will it still feel like his car? Better, Daniel promised. It'll feel like your car, but with his soul. At 2 a.m, with the adaptation complete, Daniel found himself alone in the workshop. The Mustang gleamed under the lights, perfect in its fusion of classic beauty and modern capability. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Last chance, Danny. Walk away now, or tomorrow gets ugly. M. Daniel deleted it and texted Emma instead. Your mom would be proud of us. She replied immediately. She is. I can feel it. Friday arrived with the kind of dramatic weather that seemed scripted. Storm clouds gathering, but sun breaking through in patches, the sky unable to decide between threat and promise. The press conference was held in Chen Technologies' main showroom. The adapted Mustang and Camaro displayed like proof of concept. The room filled with reporters, some friendly, most skeptical, all hungry for drama. Marcus Reed sat in the front row, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. Victoria spoke first, her prepared statement acknowledging the challenges her team had faced, including Daniel's past struggles. She spoke eloquently about second chances, about innovation born from adversity. Then Morrison wheeled forward, dressed in his decorated military uniform. You want to talk about character, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd faced real battles. This man, he pointed at Daniel, gave me back my independence. Not Apex Motors with their fancy marketing. Not some corporation with a spotless reputation. A man who understood loss, who knew what it meant to have everything taken away. Jennifer Williams was next, transferring from her wheelchair to the Mustang's driver's seat with graceful efficiency. The hand controls Daniel's team had installed were invisible, integrated so seamlessly that the classic interior remained untouched. Tomorrow is my wedding, she said. Thanks to Mr. Cross and his team, I'll drive myself to my reception in my father's car. That's not just engineering, that's understanding what matters to people. Then it was Daniel's turn. He stood at the podium, Marcus's predatory gaze fixed on him, cameras rolling, his entire future balanced on whatever words came next. 3 years ago, he began, I lost everything. My wife to cancer, my business to bankruptcy, my home to grief. I spent 18 months living in a shipping container behind a salvage yard, surviving on the kindness of strangers and the stubborn refusal to completely give up. The room was silent. I was drunk the night my wife died. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much and didn't know how to handle watching her fade away. That's not an excuse, it's a fact. One I'll live with forever. Marcus shifted, ready to pounce, but Daniel continued. But here's what I learned in that salvage yard surrounded by broken cars and broken dreams. Nothing is beyond repair if you're willing to do the work. Every classic car we adapt, every veteran we help regain independence, every person who thought their dreams were over, they're all proof that failure isn't final unless you let it be. He looked directly at Marcus. Some people profit from others' failures. They see weakness and exploit it. But others, he gestured to Victoria, Maya, his team, see potential where everyone else sees problems. That's what Chen Technologies does. We don't just adapt cars, we adapt lives. A reporter raised her hand. What about the allegations that you're unfit for this position? Before Daniel could answer, Maya rolled forward. Define unfit, she said. Is it someone who's faced adversity? Someone who's failed? Someone who's struggled? Because if that disqualifies you from leadership, then my mother shouldn't run this company. I shouldn't be headed to MIT, and none of the veterans we serve should ever drive again. She turned to face Marcus directly. Mr. Reed, you've spent so much energy trying to tear down someone who's rebuilding. What does that say about you? Marcus stood. It says I believe in standards, in accountability, in not rewarding failure with positions of authority. No, Emma said, standing as well. It says you're threatened, because Daniel Cross and his team are doing something you can't. They're succeeding by lifting others up instead of tearing them down. The room erupted with questions, but Victoria raised her hand for silence. Chen Technologies stands behind every member of our team. If investors have concerns, they're welcome to divest. If competitors want to challenge us, compete on merit, not mudslinging. And if anyone questions whether someone's past disqualifies them from their future, I invite you to test drive one of our adapted vehicles and tell me that transformation isn't possible. The press conference ended with Jennifer Williams starting the Mustang, its engine roaring to life. She drove it slowly through the showroom, tears streaming down her face, her father saluting as she passed. The evening news cycle was divided. Some outlets ran with homeless man's remarkable rise. Others with questions remain about Chen Technologies' leadership. But the social media response was overwhelming. Veterans, disabled drivers, and anyone who'd ever been given a second chance rallied behind Daniel and Chen Technologies. Marcus Reed's campaign backfired spectacularly. By Monday, Apex Motors had lost 3 more contracts, their reputation destroyed by their obvious smear tactics. Saturday morning, Daniel stood in the parking lot of St. Mary's Cathedral, watching Jennifer Williams arrive for her wedding in the Mustang, driving herself with confidence and joy. Senator Williams shook Daniel's hand with tears in his eyes. You didn't just fix a car, you gave my daughter her independence on the most important day of her life. As the wedding party moved inside, Victoria appeared beside Daniel, elegant in a dress that probably cost more than his monthly salary. You did it. We did it. No, Daniel, you stood up to your past, faced it publicly, and refused to let it define your future. That takes a courage most people never find. She took his arm, a gesture that felt natural now after weeks of crisis and triumph. Emma's inside with Maya. They're saving us seats. Victoria, I need to tell you something. These last weeks working with you building this program, it's shown me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Hope. Not just for success or redemption, but for connection. For the possibility that maybe I haven't used up all my chances at happiness. Victoria smiled, a soft expression that transformed her from CEO to simply a woman who'd found something unexpected. Daniel Cross, are you trying to tell me something? I'm trying to tell you that when this started, you saved my life. But somewhere along the way, you became my life. You and Maya and this work we're doing. That's either the most romantic or most codependent thing I've ever heard. Maybe both. She laughed, the sound bright against the morning air. Maybe both is okay. We're all a little broken, Daniel. The lucky ones find people whose broken pieces fit with theirs. Inside the cathedral, they sat together, Daniel, Victoria, Emma, and Maya. An unconventional family brought together by chance and choice. As Jennifer and her new husband exchanged vows, Daniel thought about promises and second chances, about cars and souls, about the strange journey from a salvage yard to this moment. His phone vibrated. A text from Pete. Saw the news. Proud of you, kid. The container's still here if you ever want to visit Rock Bottom again, but something tells me you're done with that address. Daniel showed it to Victoria, who squeezed his hand. He's right. Your only address now is forward. 2 years later, the Chencross Center for Adaptive Innovation stood where Garrison's salvage yard had once been. The shipping container that had been Daniel's home was preserved as a monument transformed into a meditation garden where students could reflect on transformation and resilience. Daniel stood in what was once his corner of the yard, now a state-of-the-art training facility where formerly homeless mechanics learned adaptive technology skills. 23 graduates so far, each one proof that second chances could become success stories. The morning sun cast long shadows through the facility's glass walls, illuminating workstations where men and women who'd lost everything were learning to rebuild not just cars but lives. "Mr. Cross," a voice called from behind. Daniel turned to find Susan Hartley, a reporter from Automotive Innovation Quarterly, setting up her recording equipment. "Ready for the interview?" Daniel nodded, though interviews still made him uncomfortable. He preferred letting the work speak for itself, but Victoria had convinced him that sharing their story could inspire others facing similar struggles. "Let's start with the obvious question," Susan began. "From homeless to running a multi-million-dollar program. How set?" Daniel gestured to the workshop floor below, where Tommy Martinez was teaching a new student the intricacies of adaptive hand controls. "One repair at a time, one person at a time. When you've lost everything, you learn that rebuilding isn't about giant leaps. It's about small, consistent steps forward." But surely there was a moment when you knew things had changed. Daniel thought about it. There were several. The first was when Maya trusted me to fix her Challenger, a 16-year-old girl with cerebral palsy alone in a salvage yard with a homeless stranger, and she trusted me. That trust was the first brick in rebuilding who I was. Through the window, he could see the memorial garden where his shipping container stood, painted now with a mural depicting the transformation from salvage to salvation. Local artist Maria Santos herself, a graduate of their program, had spent 6 months creating it. "The second moment," Susan prompted, "when my daughter Emma forgave me. Not just for the drinking, but for the years of absence, the missed calls, the father I stopped being when grief took over." Before he could continue, Emma herself appeared carrying a tablet with the day's schedule. At 24, she'd become instrumental in the program's expansion, her environmental engineering background helping them develop sustainable practices that were being adopted industry-wide. "The documentary crew's here," she announced. "They want to film you by the container." "Of course they do," Daniel said. "Everyone loves the metaphor." "Dad, it's a good metaphor. From homeless to helping hundreds. That's a story worth telling." The documentary Shifting Gears, the Chencross Story, had been Maya's idea. Now 19 and in her second year at MIT, she'd convinced Netflix that their story could inspire others facing impossible circumstances. Susan paused her recording. "Can I observe the documentary filming? It would add great context to my article." They walked together to the memorial garden where the Netflix crew had set up elaborate lighting around the shipping container. The director, James Patterson, was known for his work on social justice documentaries. "Daniel, I want you to stand where you used to sleep. Show us the exact spot." Daniel entered the container unchanged, except for protective coating to prevent rust. The small space that had once been his entire world now felt impossibly cramped. How had he survived 18 months in here? "This corner," he said, pointing to where his sleeping bag had been. "I'd positioned it to catch the morning sun through that gap in the wall. Warmth was everything." "Tell us about the worst night," James prompted. Daniel hesitated. Some memories were still sharp enough to cut. February 2019. Temperature dropped to -15. The sleeping bag wasn't rated for that cold. I genuinely thought I might not wake up. Spent the night doing push-ups and jumping jacks every hour just to keep my blood moving. "What kept you going?" "Honestly, stubbornness. And Pete. He'd check on me every morning pretending he needed help with something but really making sure I was still alive." As if summoned by his name, Pete Garrison appeared older now, but still moving with purpose. He ran the shelter program attached to the center, providing transitional housing for their trainees. "Still telling stories about me," Pete grumbled, though his eyes were warm. "Only the true ones." "Then you're leaving out the best parts." Pete turned to the camera. "This man saved my business more than once with his diagnostic skills. Even living in a container, he could hear an engine problem from across the yard and tell you exactly what was wrong." "That's actually how I met Maya," Daniel added. "Heard her Challenger dying from inside this container. The sound pulled me out like a siren call." They filmed for another hour, capturing Daniel's journey from various angles. Then Maya arrived in her famous Challenger, now wrapped with the Chen Cross logo and featuring QR codes that linked to resources for disabled drivers. "Sorry I'm late," she said, transferring to her wheelchair with practiced ease. "MIT lab ran over. We just had a breakthrough on the neural interface project." Susan's eyes widened. "Neural interface?" Maya grinned. "Direct thought-to-vehicle control for people with severe paralysis. Still experimental, but we've had successful tests. Imagine driving just by thinking about where you want to go." "That sounds like science fiction." "So did adaptive driving once," Daniel reminded her. "Maya's gift is making the impossible seem inevitable." They moved to the main workshop where Tommy Martinez was preparing for his certification ceremony. 2 years, clean. 18 months since Daniel had hired him, and now ready to run his own team. "Mr. Cross saved my life," Tommy told Susan without prompting. "I was sleeping under bridges drinking to forget Afghanistan. The VA had given up on me, but Daniel saw something worth saving." "What did he see?" Tommy held up his hand, scarred but steady. "These. Said anyone who could field strip a rifle in a sandstorm could learn to adapt a classic car." Turned out he was right. The certification ceremony was held in the main training hall with all current students and graduates attending. Daniel presented Tommy with his certification, but also something else, keys to a 1968 Camaro SS they'd adapted together. "This was Robert Morrison's car," Daniel explained to the audience. "His widow donated it to the program with one condition, that it go to a veteran who understood what it meant to drive toward freedom. Tommy, you've earned this." Tommy's eyes filled with tears as he accepted the keys. In the audience, his girlfriend Sarah and their infant son watched with pride. Another family rebuilt from broken pieces. After the ceremony, Victoria arrived with news that would change everything. "The Department of Defense just approved our proposal. They want Chen Cross certified trainers at every major military base. It's a $100 million contract over 5 years. The workshop erupted in celebration, but Daniel's mind was already racing ahead to the implications. "We'll need 50 more trainers, a structured curriculum, standardized equipment." "Already on it," Emma said, pulling up plans on her tablet. "I've identified potential sites near Fort Hood Camp Pendleton and Joint Base Lewis McChord. All areas with high veteran populations and existing automotive infrastructure." "This is incredible," Susan said, still recording. "How do you process success this massive after where you've been?" Daniel looked around the workshop at Tommy holding his son, at Maya explaining neural interfaces to fascinated students, at Emma coordinating expansion plans at Victoria, watching it all with quiet satisfaction. "The same way I processed failure. One day at a time, one problem at a time. The scale changes, but the approach doesn't." That evening they held their monthly family dinner, a tradition Victoria had started, where everyone involved in the program gathered to share food and stories. The main hall filled with hundreds of people, graduates, current students, staff supporters, and the families they'd all built or rebuilt. Marcus Reed sat in the corner, quiet and observant. He'd been in the program for 3 months now, his fall from corporate grace even more dramatic than Daniel's had been. But tonight, for the first time, he approached Daniel directly. "I need to say something," Marcus began, his voice lacking its old arrogance. "What I did to you trying to destroy you when you were rebuilding it was unconscionable." "It was desperate," Daniel corrected. "I recognize desperation. I've been there." "How do you forgive someone who tried to ruin you?" Daniel thought about it. "By remembering that holding on to anger is like trying to drive forward while looking backward. You crash. I want to make amends, real amends, not just words. Then succeed here, graduate, help others. Transform your knowledge from a weapon into a tool. Marcus nodded, returning to his table where other students welcomed him back. The transformation wasn't complete, might never be, but it had begun. Maya wheeled to the microphone at the front of the room, tapping it for attention. I want to share something. 3 years ago, I was just a 16-year-old girl whose car broke down at the worst possible moment. I was scared alone and convinced my disability would always define my limits. She paused, looking directly at Daniel. Then a homeless mechanic spent 6 hours in the rain fixing not just my car, but my faith in people. He taught me that adaptation isn't about accepting less, it's about achieving differently. She pulled up a presentation on the main screen. Today, I'm announcing the Maya Chen Scholarship for Disabled Engineers. Full ride to MIT for students who refuse to let physical limitations define their potential, funded entirely by the profits from our adaptive technology patents. The room erupted in applause. Victoria wiped tears from her eyes while Daniel felt his throat tighten with pride. The first recipient, Maya continued, is Angela Morrison, Robert Morrison's granddaughter born with spina bifida, who wants to continue her grandfather's legacy by becoming an adaptive engineer. A young girl in a wheelchair rolled forward, her face glowing with excitement. She was 13, brilliant and determined, everything Maya had been at that age. Mr. Cross, Angela said, her voice clear despite her nervousness. My grandfather wrote about you in his journal. He said you didn't just fix his car, you fixed his hope. I want to learn to do that for others. Then you're in the right place, Daniel assured her. The evening continued with more announcements. Emma revealed the Environmental Sustainability Initiative that would make all adaptations carbon neutral within 2 years. Victoria announced the international expansion centers planned for London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. But it was Pete who provided the evening's most moving moment. I've been running salvage yards for 45 years, he said, his gruff voice carrying across the room. Seen thousands of broken cars, hundreds of broken people. Always figured my job was just to sort the salvageable from the scrap. He paused, looking at Daniel. Then this fool showed up living in a shipping container and proved me wrong. Everything's salvageable if you're willing to do the work. So I'm announcing my retirement from the salvage business and donating my yards, all 3 of them, to the Chen Cross Foundation for Expansion. The gift was worth millions, but more importantly, it provided space for growth that they desperately needed. As the dinner wound down, Daniel found himself outside, standing by the preserved shipping container. The memorial garden was lit with soft solar lights, Emma's touch creating an atmosphere of peace where there had once been desperation. Victoria joined him, slipping her hand into his. They'd been married 6 months now, a small ceremony held right here surrounded by cars and people they'd helped restore. Any regrets, she asked, about what? The path that led here, the pain, the loss, the years in this container. Daniel considered it. I regret the pain I caused Emma, the years we lost. But the path itself, no. It led me to you, to Maya, to this work. Rachel's death broke me in exactly the places I needed to be broken, so something better could grow. That's either very philosophical or slightly concerning. Maybe both. But it's true. The man who owned Cross European Motors could never have built this. He was too focused on success to understand purpose. A car pulled up, a 1969 Dodge Charger, perfectly restored but modified with hidden adaptive controls. The driver's door opened and out stepped Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Washington, paralyzed from the waist down in Iraq, but still serving as a counselor for wounded veterans. Mr. Cross, Dr. Chen? She said, maneuvering her wheelchair with military precision. I wanted to thank you personally. This car, my father's car, I thought I'd never drive it again. That's what we're here for, Victoria said. It's more than that. You've given me back a piece of my identity I thought was gone forever. That's not just engineering, that's magic. After she left, Daniel and Victoria walked through the facility, checking on the night shift students. 3 were working late, determined to master the hydraulic systems before tomorrow's exam. Need help, Daniel offered. Please, but one student, Maria, admitted. I can't get the pressure ratios right. For the next hour, Daniel taught his hands guiding theirs, his experience filling gaps in their understanding. This was what he loved most, not the awards or recognition, but the moment when someone understood when knowledge transferred and took root. "You're a natural teacher," Victoria observed after the students had succeeded. "I had good teachers. Pete, Maya, even Marcus, in his way, he taught me what not to become." They returned home, a modest house near the center, nothing like Daniel's former mansion, but perfect for their needs. Maya had her own apartment at MIT, but kept a room here for visits. Emma lived 3 blocks away with her fiancé, close enough for daily dinners, but far enough for independence. That night, as they prepared for bed, Victoria showed Daniel something on her tablet. "The president wants to give you the Medal of Freedom." "That's ridiculous." "That's recognition. You've changed thousands of lives, created an entire industry around adaptive independence." "We've done that. Not me. We. The medal can only go to one person." "Then it should go to Pete. None of this exists without him." Victoria smiled. "I already suggested that. The president agreed. You're both being honored." Daniel laughed, imagining Pete's grumbling acceptance of such an honor. The next morning brought new challenges. A 1970 Plymouth Barracuda, whose owner had lost both arms to an IED. A 1965 Corvette Stingray, belonging to a woman with advanced MS. A 1968 Firebird, whose teenage owner had been paralyzed in a swimming accident but refused to give up his late father's car. Each vehicle arrived with a story, a dream, a refusal to accept limitations. And Daniel's team, now 50 strong across 3 shifts, met each challenge with innovation and respect. "Mr. Cross," a new voice called. Daniel turned to find a young man, maybe 25, standing nervously at the workshop entrance. "Yes, I'm James Chen, David Chen's son, Maya's half-brother." Daniel's blood chilled. Maya had discovered her biological father's identity years ago, but had chosen not to make contact, knowing it would complicate his existing family. "Does Maya know you're here?" "No, and I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to learn. I'm an engineer like my father. But what you and Maya are doing, it's what engineering should be. Using knowledge to expand possibilities, not just to make money." "What do you want?" "To help. To be part of this. I know Maya chose not to contact our father, and I respect that. But I've been following her work, your work, and I want to contribute." Daniel studied him. He had Maya's intense focus, the same intelligent eyes. "Can you start Monday? Seriously. Everyone deserves a chance, but you work under your own name, your own merit, and Maya decides if and when she wants to know you're here." James nodded eagerly. Another broken family connection that might possibly be repaired. The week continued with its usual mix of triumphs and challenges. The documentary crew captured Tommy's first solo adaptation, a 1971 Dodge Demon, for a Marine who'd lost her leg to cancer. The process took him 18 hours straight, but when the Marine drove away, tears streaming down her face, Tommy understood what Daniel had been teaching all along. "It's not about the car," he told the camera. "It's about what the car represents: freedom, identity, the ability to choose your own path." Friday brought the VA secretary's visit. Patricia Hayes toured the facility with obvious approval, stopping at the wall of photographs showing successful adaptations. "Mr. Cross, when I first met you, some people questioned my judgment in trusting a formerly homeless mechanic with a $100 million program. Some people were probably right to question it. No, they weren't. You've delivered something beyond what we contracted for. You've created a movement." She announced the new designation, the Chen Cross Center, as the official national training site for adaptive vehicle technology. It meant funding expansion and, most importantly, the ability to help thousands more. That weekend, they held their first international conference. Representatives from 12 countries came to learn the Chen Cross method. The highlight was Maya's presentation of Rachel, the AI system that could adapt any vehicle in real time to any disability. "This isn't just about cars, Sut," Maya explained to the packed auditorium. "It's about dignity, independence, the right to choose your own path regardless of physical limitations." During the Q&A, someone asked the question Daniel had been dreading. "Mr. Cross, what about people who can't afford these adaptations? Insurance rarely covers them." Daniel stood, knowing this was the moment to announce what he and Victoria had been planning. Starting next month, the Chen Cross Foundation will provide free adaptations to anyone below the poverty line, funded by our commercial operations and private donations. How many people can you help? As many as need it. We've secured commitments from major automotive manufacturers to provide vehicles. We have volunteer mechanics ready to train. We have the facilities. No one should lose their independence because they can't afford to keep it. The announcement made headlines worldwide. Donations poured in. Ford committed 50 vehicles. General Motors matched it. Even luxury brands like Mercedes and BMW offered their support. But it was a small donation that meant the most. Rachel's parents. Daniel's former in-laws, whom he hadn't spoken to since the funeral, sent a check with a note. Rachel would be so proud. We are too. Thank you for finding your way back. 5 years had passed since the Medal of Freedom ceremony. The Chen Cross Center for Adaptive Innovation had evolved from a single facility into a global network spanning 43 cities across 6 continents. But on this particular December morning, Daniel Cross stood in the original Detroit Center looking at a sight that stopped him cold. A 1969 Dodge Challenger Deep Purple with white racing stripes sat in the workshop bay. Not Maya's, hers was in the memorial museum they'd built. This one belonged to someone else, someone new, but the similarity was unmistakable. Her name's Isabella, Victoria said, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. 17 years old. Cerebral palsy, just like Maya. Her car broke down outside the center last night. Security found her crying in the driver's seat. Daniel took the coffee, his mind spinning back to that night 7 years ago when everything had changed. Where is she now? Conference room with her parents. They're complicated. Complicated how sick? Divorced. Fighting over whether she should be driving at all. Father thinks it's too dangerous. Mother thinks it's essential for her independence. Isabella just wants to drive her grandmother's car without everyone treating her like she's made of glass. Daniel found the family in heated discussion. Isabella sat in her wheelchair, arms crossed, while her parents argued over her head as if she wasn't there. It was painfully familiar. How many times had he seen families fracture under the weight of disability, each member handling it differently, love twisted into overprotection or denial? Excuse me, Daniel interrupted. I'm Daniel Cross. I understand you're having some car trouble. Isabella's father, Marcus Thompson, stood immediately. Mr. Cross, I've read about your work. This is an honor. The honor's mine, Daniel said, but his attention was on Isabella. That's a beautiful Challenger, 1969. 1970. Isabella corrected her voice, carrying the same determined tone Maya's had all those years ago. Grandmother bought it new. She was the only woman at her accounting firm who drove muscle. Said if men could compensate with cars, so could she. Daniel smiled. Smart woman. What's wrong with it? Everything, her father interjected. The modifications are failing. It's mechanically unsound. It's perfect, Isabella interrupted. It just needs someone who understands it. The car or the driver? Daniel asked gently. Isabella met his eyes. Both. Her mother Sandra leaned forward. Can you fix it? The adaptations were done by another company, but they're inadequate. Daniel studied the family dynamics. Father fearful, mother hopeful, daughter frustrated. How many times had he seen this pattern? Let's look at the car first, he suggested. Isabella, would you show me what's wrong? They moved to the workshop where the Challenger waited. Isabella transferred to the driver's seat with practiced movements, her parents hovering anxiously. See, she demonstrated, the hand controls stick, the brake response is delayed. And watch this. She tried to shift, and the adaptation made a grinding sound that made Daniel wince. Apex Motors, he diagnosed immediately. They did this, didn't they? How did you know? They always try to override the original systems instead of working with them. May I? Isabella moved aside, and Daniel examined the modifications. It was worse than he'd thought, not just inadequate, but actively dangerous. The adaptations were fighting the car's natural mechanics, creating failure points throughout the system. This isn't just inadequate, he told the parents bluntly. It's unsafe. These modifications could fail catastrophically at any moment. Marcus Thompson's face went white. I knew it. She shouldn't be driving. That's not what I said, Daniel corrected. I said these modifications are unsafe. The solution isn't to stop her from driving, it's to do the job right. How long would that take? Sandra asked. Daniel looked at Isabella, remembering another teenage girl with CP who'd needed someone to believe in her capabilities rather than her limitations. We could do a temporary fix to make it safe, then schedule a complete rebuild. But honestly, this needs to be redone from scratch, properly, the way Isabella deserves. We can't afford, Marcus began. The Chen Cross Foundation covers cases like this, Victoria interrupted, having joined them. Dangerous modifications that need correction. Consider it a safety issue, not charity. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. You do that? We'd be honored, Daniel said, but I have a condition. What? You help with the rebuild. You learn what we're doing and why. Because someday you might be the one teaching others. Tommy Martinez approached, now the lead instructor for the training program. Mr. Cross, we've got that veteran's pickup ready for final inspection. Isabella want to see what a proper adaptation looks like, Daniel offered. They moved to another bay where a 1972 Ford F-100 sat gleaming. Its owner, Staff Sergeant Rita Coleman, was testing the hand controls, her movement smooth and confident, despite missing both legs below the knee. Perfect, Rita declared. It drives exactly like it did before my injury, just with different controls. That's the goal, Tommy explained to Isabella. We don't change what the vehicle is. We change how you interact with it. Isabella watched with fascination as Rita demonstrated the seamless integration of adaptive technology with classic engineering. It looks completely stock. That's the art, Daniel said. Anyone can bolt technology onto a classic car. We integrate it so completely that it becomes part of the car's story, not an addition to it. Maya arrived that afternoon home from MIT for winter break. She'd completed her doctorate in record time and was now leading a research team developing what she called predictive adaptive technology systems that could anticipate a driver's needs before they arose. Is that my car's twin? She asked, seeing Isabella's challenger. Close enough, Daniel said. Maya, meet Isabella. Isabella, this is Dr. Maya Chen Cross. Maya had legally added Daniel's name after his adoption of her following the wedding. You're Maya Chen. Isabella's eyes went wide. I've watched every one of your YouTube videos. Your TED Talk changed my life. Maya grinned. Want to see something cool? She pulled up her tablet showing a 3D scan of Isabella's challenger. I've been working on something. Watch this. The scan transformed, showing potential modifications that were so elegantly integrated they seemed to have been designed by Dodge themselves. This is what your car could be, Maya explained. Not adapted, but evolved. Over the next week, Isabella became a fixture at the center. Her parents, initially suspicious of each other's motives, found themselves united in amazement at their daughter's transformation. She wasn't just learning about cars, she was discovering her own capabilities. She's brilliant, Emma told Daniel one evening. Her understanding of mechanical systems is intuitive. She reminds me of someone else at that age. Maya. You. The way you described yourself before everything fell apart. That natural connection to machines. And James Chen, Maya's half-brother, who'd been working at the center for 2 years now, had become Isabella's primary instructor. He'd proven himself talented and dedicated, though Maya still didn't know about their connection. Daniel watched them work together, wondering if talent for adaptation ran in families biological or chosen. Mr. Cross, James said during a break, I think it's time. Maya should know who I am. That's not my decision to make. But you could facilitate it. Make the introduction easier. Daniel thought about all the broken family connections in his life, some repaired, some permanently severed. I'll talk to her. That evening, he found Maya in the original workshop, the one where she'd first watched him repair her Challenger. She was working on something new, a neural interface helmet that could control vehicle functions through thought alone. Busy? He asked. Always, but never too busy for you, Dad. She'd started calling him that after the adoption naturally, as if it had always been true. There's something we need to discuss, James Chen. Maya's hands stilled. I know who he is. You do. I've known for 6 months. Did a DNA test for the neural interface project needed baseline genetic markers. His came up as a familial match. She turned to face him. I've been waiting for him to tell me himself. He wants to. He's just afraid. Of what? That you'll reject him. That you'll think he's trying to capitalize on your success. That the connection to your biological father will complicate things. Maya sighed. David Chen made his choices. He has his family, his life. James made different choices. He came here, proved himself, helped people. That matters more than shared DNA. So you'll talk to him? Tomorrow. We'll have lunch. Neutral ground. She paused. Will you come as buffer? If you want me there. I always want you there. You're my dad. He's just someone who shares some genetic code. The next day's lunch was awkward at first. James nervously over-explained everything while Maya listened with her characteristic intensity. Finally, she cut through the tension. You're a good engineer, she said simply. You help people. That's what matters. The rest is just biographical detail. That's it. James seemed stunned. What did you expect, dramateers? We're engineers. We solve problems. The problem here is that you've been terrified to talk to me. Problem solved. Now want to help me with the neural interface? I could use someone with your control system expertise. Daniel watched them work together that afternoon, two half-siblings finding common ground in circuits and code. Another broken connection slowly mending. Marcus Reed's graduation ceremony was held that Friday. He'd completed the program with distinction, his natural business acumen combined with hard-earned humility, making him surprisingly effective at helping other formerly successful people who'd lost everything. I want to establish a fund, Marcus announced at the ceremony, for people like me, like us, who had everything and lost it through our own failings. Success can be its own kind of disability when you lose it. He committed $5 million money he'd hidden offshore and recently recovered to establishing the Second Chance Fund. Daniel Cross taught me that failure isn't final unless you let it be, Marcus said. I let it be for too long. No more. After the ceremony, Marcus approached Daniel privately. I need to tell you something. That night Rachel died, I was the one who called you about the Frankfurt contract. I knew you'd been drinking, knew you were struggling with her illness, and I pushed anyway. I wanted that commission. Daniel felt the old anger rise, then dissipate. I know. You know, Shao, I've always known. You weren't subtle about pushing for that deal. But Marcus, I made the choice to drink. I made the choice to prioritize work over being with Rachel. You were a catalyst, not a cause. How can you forgive that? Because holding on to that anger would be like trying to drive while dragging an anchor. It only slows you down. That weekend brought the center's 5th annual gala held in the main workshop, transformed into an elegant venue. Classic cars lined the walls, each one representing a life changed. The guest list read like a who's who of automotive and adaptive technology, but the real stars were the drivers, hundreds of people who'd been told they'd never drive again, arriving in their adapted dreams. Isabella and her parents attended her Challenger, now fully rebuilt and magnificent. She drove it herself, her parents riding as passengers for the first time, trust replacing fear. Mr. Cross, Isabella's father said, finding Daniel during the cocktail hour, I owe you an apology. I was so focused on protecting her that I was actually limiting her. It's natural, Daniel assured him. We want to protect the people we love. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting them take risks. Your daughter Emma told me about your journey, how you had to let her help you when traditional roles would say you should be helping her. Family isn't about who helps whom, it's about helping each other. Senator Williams attended with Jennifer, now Jennifer Morrison, who arrived in her Mustang with her husband and 3-year-old daughter. Mr. Cross, Jennifer called out, maneuvering her wheelchair with easy grace. I want you to meet someone. She introduced him to her daughter Lucy, who looked at Daniel with the serious expression only toddlers could manage. Mama drives fast, Lucy announced. Vroom vroomin'. Yes, she does, Daniel agreed. And someday if you want, you can too. Even if legs don't work, Lucy asked with a child's directness. Especially then, Jennifer said, hugging her daughter. Mr. Cross made sure of that. The evening's keynote speaker was Dr. Patricia Hayes, now Secretary of Veterans Affairs. She spoke about the transformation of veteran care, how the Chen Cross model had revolutionized not just adaptive driving, but adaptive living. 7 years ago, she said, a homeless mechanic fixed a teenage girl's car in the rain. That single act of kindness has led to this 15,000 successful adaptations, 300 trained mechanics lifted from poverty, 43 centers worldwide, and countless lives transformed. She paused, looking directly at Daniel. But the real measure isn't in numbers. It's in the father who can drive his daughter to school despite his paralysis. The grandmother who can still take Sunday drives despite her arthritis. The teenager who refuses to let cerebral palsy define her limits. That's the Chen Cross legacy, not just adapting cars, but adapting dreams. After the speech, Daniel found himself on the roof of the center, looking out over Detroit. The city sparkled with renewed life, its own comeback story paralleling his. Victoria joined him along with Emma and her husband Tom Maya and James Pete Garrison, and surprisingly, Marcus Reed. Remember when this was all just a salvage yard? Pete asked. I remember when it was my only hope, Daniel replied. It was never just a salvage yard, Victoria corrected. It was a place where broken things waited to be useful again, including you. Including all of us, Maya added. We're all salvage in some way. The lucky ones find someone willing to see past the rust. Emma pulled out her phone. Dad, there's something you should see. She showed him a video message from Jenny Morrison, Robert Morrison's granddaughter, the first recipient of Maya's scholarship now in her junior year at MIT. Mr. Cross, Jenny said from what was clearly a laboratory. I wanted you to know we did it. The universal adaptive interface Maya and I have been developing, it works. Any car, any disability, instant adaptation. We're calling it the Cross Protocol because, like you taught us, it's about crossing between what was and what can be. Daniel felt tears threaten. The Cross Protocol. You earned it, Maya said firmly. Your name should be on something that matters. As if summoned by the conversation about legacy, Tommy Martinez appeared with news. Mr. Cross, we just got a call. There's a situation at the center's entrance. They descended to find a small crowd gathered around a battered RV. Inside was a family, parents and 3 children, one in a wheelchair. They'd driven from Alabama, arriving with barely enough gas to make it. We heard about what you do, the father said, exhausted but determined. Our son Kevin, he's 15, loves cars like breathing, but the doctors say he'll never drive. We sold everything to get here to see if maybe... Daniel looked at the boy in the wheelchair, saw the hunger in his eyes, not just to drive, but to be seen as capable of driving. What's your dream car? Daniel asked him. 1968 Camaro Z28, Kevin answered immediately. Rally green with white stripes. I know it's impossible. We don't use that word here, Daniel interrupted gently. Tommy, do we still have that green 68 in the donation lot? We do, but it needs everything. Then we better get started. Kevin, how do you feel about learning while we work? The family erupted in tears and gratitude, but Daniel was already thinking ahead, planning the adaptation, seeing the boy's future unfolding. Later that night, after the gala ended and the center quieted, Daniel stood in the memorial garden by his old shipping container. The mural had been updated recently, showing not just his transformation, but the ripple effects. All the lives changed because one homeless mechanic had chosen to help a scared teenager. Emma found him there carrying her infant son, Daniel's first grandchild, born 3 months ago, and named Daniel Jr., though everyone called him DJ. Can't sleep, she asked. Just thinking. About circles. How I started here with nothing, and now there's all this. But I'm still the same person who slept in that container. No? Emma disagreed. You're not the same. That person was broken and alone. You're healed and surrounded by family. The breaking was necessary, Daniel realized. If I hadn't lost everything, I couldn't have found all this. DJ gurgled in his sleep, and Daniel took him carefully, holding his grandson with hands that had rebuilt hundreds of dreams. What kind of world will he grow up in? Emma wondered. One where limitations are just engineering challenges, Daniel said, where second chances are standard, not exceptional, where people like Kevin and Isabella and Maya don't have to fight for independence, it's just assumed they deserve it. Victoria appeared with news that would change everything once again. Daniel, I just got off the phone with the UN. They want to make the Chen-Cross Protocol the international standard for adaptive technology. They're proposing a global initiative, adaptive centers in every major city worldwide within 10 years. That's enormous. It's necessary. There are millions of people worldwide who need what we offer. The question is, are you ready to lead it? Daniel looked around at his family, chosen and biological, broken and rebuilt. He thought about the shipping container, about Pete's salvage yard, about Maya's Challenger breaking down at exactly the right moment. I spent 3 years preparing for this without knowing it, he said. Yes, I'm ready. The next morning brought a new beginning disguised as routine. Daniel arrived at the center to find Kevin already there with his family staring at the 1968 Camaro with the expression of someone seeing possibility for the first time. Ready to start? Daniel asked. I was born ready, Kevin replied with the confidence of youth. Good. Because this isn't just about adapting a car, it's about adapting the world's perception of what's possible. As they began working, other students gathered to watch and learn. Isabella worked alongside them, her own expertise growing daily. James and Maya collaborated on the neural interface that would eventually make even severe paralysis irrelevant to driving capability. Emma designed sustainable power systems that would make adaptations carbon neutral. Victoria coordinated the global expansion that would bring hope to millions. And in the center of it all, Daniel Cross, former millionaire, former homeless man, current revolutionary, taught a boy in a wheelchair that dreams don't die just because bodies don't cooperate. The first rule of adaptation, he told Kevin, is that everything is possible. The second rule is that possible doesn't mean easy. The third rule? What's the third rule, Suts? Kevin asked eagerly. Daniel smiled, thinking of all the journeys that had led to this moment. The third rule is that the best adaptations make things stronger than they were originally. Cars and people both. 10 years had passed since Kevin first sat in that 1968 Camaro, and the world had transformed in ways Daniel Cross could never have imagined when he lived in that shipping container. The Chen-Cross Protocol had become the global standard implemented in 73 countries with centers on every continent, including a research station in Antarctica, serving the international scientific community. Daniel stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York, preparing to address the Global Accessibility Summit. At 62, his hair had gone completely white, earning him the nickname the Silver Mechanic from the thousands of students he'd trained. But his hands remained steady, his vision clear, and his purpose unwavering. Nervous? Victoria asked, adjusting his tie. At 56, she commanded even more respect than when they'd met her business empire, now valued at $12 billion, all built on the principle that limitation was just another engineering problem. Terrified, Daniel admitted. It's easier to rebuild a transmission than to convince world leaders to fund accessibility. You've done harder things. Remember that first night with Maya's Challenger? That was different. That was just me, a broken car, and a scared kid. No. Maya corrected, wheeling up to them. Now 29, Dr. Maya Chen-Cross had become the face of adaptive technology worldwide, her TED Talks viewed by millions, her innovations saving lives daily. That was the beginning of everything. The assembly hall filled with delegates from every UN member nation. But more importantly, the gallery held the people who mattered, hundreds of drivers who'd been told they'd never drive again, each one living proof of what the Chen-Cross Protocol could achieve. Isabella Thompson, now 27, and running the Miami Center, sat in the front row. She'd graduated from MIT, mentored by Maya, and developed the rapid adaptation system that could modify any vehicle in under 6 hours. Kevin Morrison, he'd taken Robert Morrison's last name after the family unofficially adopted him, was there too now, Dr. Kevin Morrison, the youngest director in the Chen-Cross network, running the Atlanta facility at just 25. Tommy Martinez had flown in from Los Angeles, where he ran the West Coast operations. Clean for 12 years, married to Sarah with 3 kids, he'd become the model for how second chances could cascade into generational change. Even Marcus Reed was there now, running the European division from London, his business acumen finally channeled toward building rather than destroying. Daniel began his address with a story. 15 years ago, I was homeless living in a shipping container behind a salvage yard in Detroit. I'd lost everything: my wife to cancer, my business to bankruptcy, my daughter to my own failures. I thought my story was over. The hall was silent, even the translators pausing to ensure they captured every word accurately. Then a teenage girl's car broke down, a 1969 Dodge Challenger that had been modified so she could drive despite her cerebral palsy. I fixed it. Not because I was a hero, but because I was a mechanic, and that's what mechanics do. We fix things. He clicked a remote, and the screen behind him showed that first photo of Maya's Challenger in the rain. That single repair led to this 23,000 successful adaptations. 4,700 trained mechanics lifted from poverty or homelessness, 312 centers worldwide, and approximately 1.2 million people who've regained their automotive independence. The numbers drew murmurs of appreciation, but Daniel wasn't finished. But I'm not here to talk about our success. I'm here to talk about our failure. The murmurs stopped. We failed the 2 billion people worldwide who have disabilities that prevent traditional driving. We failed the millions of veterans who come home changed and find their world has shrunk. We failed every person who's been told their physical limitations define their possibilities. He clicked again. The screen showed a map dotted with Chen-cross centers, impressive but vast empty spaces between them. This is why I'm here, to ask for your help in failing less. The presentation that followed was Maya's masterwork economic projections showing how automotive independence increased employment by 47%, reduced healthcare costs by 23%, and generated an average of $3.2 million in economic activity per 100 adaptations. But it was the personal stories that moved the assembly. Jennifer Morrison describing how driving her father's Mustang to her wedding had meant more than walking down the aisle would have. Robert Morrison's widow Helen, now 93, explaining how her husband's final road trip had given him 2 years of joy instead of decline. A young soldier from Syria who'd lost both legs to a landmine but now drove relief supplies to refugee camps in his adapted truck. The technology exists, Daniel continued. The expertise exists. What we need is the will to make it universal. Every person who wants to drive should have that option, regardless of physical ability, regardless of economic status, regardless of geography. The Chinese delegate raised a hand. Mr. Cross, the cost of such an undertaking would be astronomical. The cost of not undertaking it is higher, Victoria interjected from her seat. Lost productivity, increased healthcare costs, social isolation leading to mental health crises. We can show you the numbers, but I think you understand the human cost. The Russian delegate spoke next. You're asking us to fund American technology. I'm asking you to fund human independence, Daniel corrected. The Chen-cross protocol is open source. We don't own it, the world does. Any nation can implement it, improve it, adapt it to their needs. Why? The delegate seemed genuinely puzzled. Why give away something worth billions? Maya wheeled forward to answer. Because my father, she gestured to Daniel, taught me that some things matter more than money. Independence, dignity, the right to choose your own path. You can't put a price on that. Your father, the French delegate looked confused. But I thought, biology is accident, Maya said firmly. Family is choice. Daniel Cross chose me when I was a broken teenager with a broken car. He's been my father every day since. The vote came 3 hours later after heated debate in 6 languages. The Global Automotive Adaptation Initiative passed 189-4, with only small nations citing economic impossibility voting against. The funding was staggering $50 billion over 10 years, with every nation contributing based on their GDP. Centers would be built in every major city. Training programs established in every technical school, and the technology would remain open source forever. That evening, the Chen-cross family, because that's what they'd become, this sprawling network of rebuilt lives celebrated in the rooftop garden of Victoria's Manhattan penthouse. We did it, Emma said, raising a champagne glass. She was 40 now, her son DJ, a boisterous 10-year-old who'd already rebuilt 3 engines under his grandfather's supervision. We changed the world. Kevin added his girlfriend Maria, a dancer who'd lost her hearing but moved with music she felt rather than heard, signing his words for their deaf friends. No, Daniel corrected, looking out over the city lights. We just made it possible for people to change their own worlds. Pete Garrison, 91 and still sharp, laughed from his wheelchair, a Chen Cross special that could navigate any terrain. Still humble after all these years, boy, you went from sleeping in my salvage yard to speaking at the UN. Take the win. But Daniel's mind was already moving forward. This is just the beginning. Cars are one kind of independence. What about homes, workplaces, public spaces? See, Dad, Maya said warningly, we just got $50 billion to revolutionize automotive adaptation. Maybe celebrate for 5 minutes. Your father doesn't know how to stop fixing things, Victoria said fondly. It's pathological at this point. James Chen, who'd become the chief technology officer for the entire operation, pulled up something on his tablet. Actually, Mr. Cross might be onto something. Look at this. It was a proposal from an architecture firm in Tokyo. They wanted to apply Chen Cross principles to building design structures that could adapt to their occupants' needs in real time. Adaptive architecture, Isabella breathed. Buildings that learn. Cities that evolve, Tommy added. Worlds that include everyone, Kevin finished. Daniel felt the familiar spark of possibility, the same feeling he'd had that night with Maya's Challenger. But now he had an army of believers, a global network of dreamers and doers who understood that adaptation wasn't about accepting limitations, it was about transcending them. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number with a photo attached. It showed a young girl, maybe 12, sitting in a modified 1970 Plymouth Barracuda in what looked like rural Bangladesh. The message read, "Your protocol saved my daughter's dreams. We built this ourselves from your open source plans. She drives to school now. Thank you." Daniel showed it to the others. This was why they did it, not for the recognition or the billions in funding, but for that one girl in Bangladesh who refused to let her wheelchair define her limits. So, Victoria said, studying the architectural proposal, are we really doing this, expanding beyond cars? We're expanding beyond everything, Daniel said. Every limitation, every barrier, every voice that says you can't. Maya pulled up her latest innovation on the holographic display, a neural interface so sophisticated it could translate thought into action for even the most severe paralysis. With this, she said, quadriplegics can drive Formula One cars. If we can do that, we can do anything. The Chen Cross protocol for living, Emma suggested, not just driving, but thriving. They spent the rest of the evening planning, dreaming, pushing boundaries that most people didn't even know existed. The 10-year-old DJ listened with rapt attention, already sketching designs in his notebook. Third-generation innovation building on second-generation revolution, built on first-generation desperation. At midnight, Daniel found himself alone on the terrace, looking out over New York. The city pulsed with life, millions of stories unfolding simultaneously. Once he'd been invisible among those millions, a forgotten man in a forgotten corner of Detroit. Victoria joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Regrets? She asked their traditional question. None? He answered his traditional response. Not even one. Daniel thought about it. I wish Rachel could see this. Not the success, but the healing. She always believed in second chances. She does see it, Victoria said with certainty. Every person we help, every barrier we break, that's her legacy too. Her death broke you exactly where you needed to break to become this. That's either profound or deeply disturbing. Both, Victoria agreed. Most truths are. A sound from inside drew their attention. DJ had started the holographic display showing a presentation he'd apparently been working on. Grandpa, he called out. I designed something. They gathered around as the 10-year-old showed them his invention, a wheelchair that could transform into an exoskeleton, allowing users to stand, walk, or remain seated as needed. It's probably stupid, DJ said, suddenly shy. No, Daniel said, kneeling to his grandson's level. It's brilliant, and you know what? We're going to build it. Really. Really. Tomorrow, you and I start prototyping. Maya will help with the electronics, James with the control systems, your mom with making it sustainable. And me, Victoria asked. You figure out how to manufacture it for less than $1,000 so everyone can afford it. Challenge accepted. As the family dispersed to their rooms, they'd taken over an entire floor of the hotel. Daniel remained with DJ, looking at his design. Grandpa, were you really homeless? I was. Why? Daniel considered how to explain loss and grief to a 10-year-old who'd known only love and possibility. Sometimes life breaks you in ways you don't expect. I lost someone I loved and didn't know how to continue. But you did continue. Eventually, with help. Like how you help people now. Exactly like that. DJ yawned and Daniel carried him to bed, this child who would grow up in a world where adaptation was assumed, where limitations were just engineering challenges, where second chances were standard. The next morning brought a crisis. The Chinese delegation called. They'd discovered a faction within their government trying to weaponize the Chen Cross Protocol using the adaptive technology for military applications. This is exactly what we wanted to prevent, Victoria said, pacing the hotel suite. We can't control how people use open-source technology, James pointed out. But we can control our response, Daniel said. We make the technology so ubiquitously positive that using it for harm becomes socially impossible. How? Flood the market. Release everything, every design, every innovation, every possibility. Make it so accessible that it can't be hoarded or weaponized. Maya was already typing. I can have everything online in 6 hours. Every adaptation we've ever done, every innovation we've developed. That's worth hundreds of billions in IP. Marcus warned, his business instincts still sharp. And it's worthless if it's used to hurt people, Daniel countered. They spent the day in crisis mode, but it was the kind of crisis Daniel thrived in, a problem that needed solving, a broken system that needed fixing. By evening, they'd released everything. The entire Chen Cross database, 15 years of innovations, all free to anyone with an internet connection. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, makerspaces worldwide were building adaptations. Kids in Kenya were 3D printing hand controls. Engineers in Iceland were improving the designs. A grandmother in Peru figured out how to adapt a 1940s truck using bamboo and bicycle parts. We just gave away our entire business model, Marcus said, though he was smiling. No, Daniel corrected. We just ensured it can never be taken away. The hotel room door burst open. Tommy rushed in with his laptop. You need to see this. It was a live stream from Detroit. Someone had broken into the original Chen Cross Center, except they hadn't broken in to steal. They'd broken in to leave something. The camera showed the memorial garden where Daniel's shipping container stood, but now it was surrounded by hundreds of model cars, each with a note. The security guard was reading them aloud. You saved my father's independence. You gave my daughter her dreams back. You showed me that broken doesn't mean worthless. You proved that everyone deserves a second chance. The offerings continued to arrive even as they watched people driving from across the country to leave their tributes. Not to Chen Cross the company, but to the shipping container where it all began. We should go back, Daniel said suddenly. All of us. Tomorrow. Dad, we have meetings, Emma began. Cancel them. This matters more.